Hey, what's up, everybody? In this video, I'm going to be talking about a little process that I became aware about by reading The Secret Teachings, this book I've been reading. And basically, it talks about, well, the idea that I got from this was how you go basically from sensation to reason, right? And this could tie in with the video that I made on reflection and action, how you act, right, and then you feel through the senses is how you know things, right? That's how you obtain information and knowledge, through the senses. um, but then, like, in order to fix things, right, to transform or make changes, you need to think about that, right? You need to reason it. So you need to reason in order to obtain that knowledge, right? But there's a third one that kind of hides, and I'm going to make special emphasis on this, which is intuition. Now, intuition, I think, and I was listening to this chat also, where they mentioned that intuition is not really valued in our society any longer, and I think that's a loss for us, because intuition has a lot of things that it can give us, right? Like, if you just sit there and let the ideas come to you, even if you're in the nothingness or in the unconsciousness, you can still kind of just sit there and, feel things. But anyway, that's intuition. Now, then, when you get ready to act and talk about things and say things and do things, that's when you can call upon your intuition to basically guide you, to make whatever transformations you need to make into the sensible world, right? Now, I'm going to talk about something personal, in which I'm applying this to to give you like a more concrete example. So the sensation I receive is visual, which is basically from people in public, right? On the street, at the supermarket, right? And the stimulus that I receive is basically people staring at me, right? Like, I don't like when people stare at me. So people stare at me. I tried different things, right? I've tried ignoring them, first of all. Then I tried like looking back at them, like challenging them, right? In Spain, for example, they say that's a thing that people will do. They will hold your gaze for like 5 seconds, right? And it's kind of uncomfortable. That's something, I guess, that people do here in Mexico too. I don't really like it, and I can't really do it. So when I try to do it, it's just gonna come off as aggressive, because it's not natural, right? For people here, it's just natural, but not for me. So now the point at where I'm at is just basically thinking to myself, like, fuck you, right? And then just like, I don't know how you would say this in English, but it's like, hacer la vista gorda, like opening or widening your gaze. So it's like you're looking at nothing, right? And you're not looking at the people's eyes. You're just like looking right past them, right, as if they were like a ghost. That's kind of what I've been doing. But it still kind of frustrates me, right? So then I said, okay, maybe I was reading Carl Jung, and I ended up thinking to myself, okay, so what is it that my unconscious wants, right? And I got to this idea that maybe that's happening, or there's an unconscious need inside of me that's kind of like, and this is gonna sound crazy, right? But this is where I'm at with this right now, that I want to have like followers, right? Like, I want to have like a following. Like, I want to have people, maybe like the greats, right? Like Jesus, Buddha, Gandhi. Well, I don't know if Buddha did it, but like Gandhi, or like politicians when they're campaigning, and they're like walking down the street, with their crowd, with the group of voters, or the group of, promoters that they're with, like all the people. And yeah, kind of like Gandhi, I guess, like a clearer picture. Just look up any video of Gandhi, and you're gonna see him walking around, looking very humble, right? Like, looking very common, like the common man, right? I think Jesus was also like the common man. The politician nowadays will dress like a common man when they're campaigning, right? Not giving a speech, right? But like when they're with the crowd, right? Like walking, shaking hands and everything. They try to look, they don't want to stand out, right? Because they already stand out in other ways, right? In more moral, psychological ways. But that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, what if that's what I want? What if I want to because I'm like, what do you really want when you see someone on the street? Well, I kind of want to go up to him and be like, what are you looking at? But I also may just want to talk to the person and be like, hey, like, and kind of like fill their heads with ideas, which is kind of something that I guess I like doing, because one of the things that I also think about is I don't like when people stare, because I feel like they're not being productive. They're not thinking about anything, right? They're just staring. And I think I've mentioned this before. So yeah, that's where I'm at on that. And just the way in which this goes from like sensation to reason, and then to intuition, right? So you always have that access to intuition. A lot of people put a lot of emphasis on reasoning, right? Like everything has to make sense, but you can also do things that don't make sense for now, right? But they will maybe in the future, which is using your intuition. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about in this case, oh yeah, and for this point, I wanted to point out attention, right? Attention and focus. How much of it do you need? Like, for instance, when you're feeling through your senses, observing, listening to someone, how much attention do you need to pay to that person to really understand, right? Or when you're reasoning, how much attention do you got to pay to that process? Or when you're using your intuition, right? I think that's when you have to even pay more attention, because you have to be completely open to whatever is coming into your head, right? From yourself or from the context. Yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting. And okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about was death. I know I've talked about death before, like if it were good or bad. Is it good? Is it bad? Because some people celebrate it, other people don't. Um, but this is like the idea I have, because I've been thinking about death, but in the sense of like it's scary, but maybe legally it's scary, like to do that process for another person, right? And the idea I had is like, if God showed up and was like, you're gonna die right now, you would probably tell him, I don't want to die, right? And if he were to ask you why, you would probably say, because I still have things I want to do, right? So that's the potentiality that you have, right, towards the future. It's full of potentials, right? Or you could say, well, I want to kiss my mother, I want to hug my family, whatever. And you could say, okay, now if God were to say, okay, you can do all that, but how much until I can take you, right? Until you can die. Would you be able to answer him and say, okay, give me like 100 days, give me 100 kisses, give me 100 hugs, right? Give me 100 potentials, right? Because where are those potentials even going to take you, right? So yeah, it would basically be like, what would be your reasons for not going? And what if God were to negotiate those reasons with you by saying, okay, you can have this, but then I'm taking you, right? But then you're dying. And this just leads me to the ultimate conclusion, which I have been kind of looking into right now, which is like, what is the ultimate? And remember, I don't know if you saw a video where I talked about that the ultimate could be unity, right? But I don't think it's unity, because I was reading something else that said the ultimate is like unity or equilibrium, right? Which is like balance. And I was like, nah, I think it's complexity. I think that's the ultimate objective of human life, right? You want to make things more and more complex as we go on through life, right? And complexity, I can summarize it or define it as orderly chaos, right? So it's chaotic, but there's a certain order to that, right? So that's kind of like the conclusion I got to with that notion. So let me know what you think about all this. A couple of ideas there for you to ponder about, for you to think about. And I'll see you in the next one. All right, peace.